Today we'll be talking about tracking lead sources. We will cover how to create and use custom lead sources in Pipeline to help you measure the effectiveness of your advertising campaigns. So what are lead sources? Y'all know what they are already. Really just tracking from where your sale came from. So that could be your sphere of influence, realtor.com, Google AdWords, wherever you actually advertise. It could be organic searches, etc. Okay. So let's dive into Pipeline to first see how you set up your lead sources. So from your admin area, in the upper right corner, your name, and then over on the left-hand side, lead sources. Here's where you set them up, and it's pretty typical to how the rest of the admin area works. So you add a lead source, name it, and hit add lead source. Once you do that and you've set it up, then you'll be able to assign that either as a buyer lead source or a seller lead source on the transactions. So let's go take a look at that. Now, if you happen to track lead sources, before we go there, if you happen to track lead sources elsewhere, maybe in your transaction labels or any other way in Pipeline, we strongly recommend converting to use them this way because there's lots of clean trackability by using them this way, and they'll just be a lot more effective, okay? And if you've got any questions about that, just feel free to let us know. Okay, so let's head on over to a transaction. Let's actually do a new transaction. So to add a buyer or a seller lead source, it's the fields that are down here. So let's say I'm adding my seller name. I can indicate from where that seller came. Okay. And it's really that simple. It's just really the addition of these two fields here, or the existence of these two fields, that allows you to track that lead source on each transaction. Okay, so how do I use this data that I've assigned to the transaction to effectively monitor how I'm spending my money? Let's look at the different ways. First, if I want to eyeball how, or just sort of get at a glance how these, how effective this is, I can search for my transactions by lead source. And the way that I do that is in the upper left corner in my global search area. I can select lead source down here and then type whatever lead source, let's say Google I'm looking for. Type whatever lead source I'm trying to find here. So this is going to find all the transactions that have Google, actually I think it's Google Ads, as my buyer lead source or my seller lead source. So in this case right here, this one I'm hovering over, it's got my seller lead source as Google Ads. Okay, so that's a quick and easy way of getting at a glance the affected transactions here and listing them here. And as you saw, I can hover to quickly find out exactly what it is, or I can click on through to view more details. Okay, so that's a quick and easy way to search it. I can also run a transaction download. The buyer and seller lead sources will be included in those. So if I download any of these three spreadsheets here, and I've got one right here, I'll be able to, over on the right-hand side, actually, I'm sorry, over here, one of these fields, be able to see my buyer and seller lead source. Remember your transaction downloads, whether you're doing it for transactions added in a particular year or you're doing your full transaction download, they're going to download all the fields for the transaction. And that way you've got the ability to filter or sort exactly on what you want to filter or sort on. So in this case, if I downloaded this to look at my lead source information, I can sort it. Go ahead and highlight all those. I'd highlight it all the way down and then sort it like I did here, so I can see all of the lead sources for my buyer lead source or for my seller lead source, depending on which one I sort on. Okay. And then if I'm looking for certain data for that, maybe all the, the total list price for all of those, I could copy those on out, start a new tab, paste them. Make these all a little bit bigger here, right? And then maybe for that particular lead source, I didn't copy my title field there, which I obviously should have. But then I can go ahead and total out those, where is my, there we go, total out those, whichever number I want to look at. Okay, so obviously just really manipulating exactly how or what I want to actually measure. Okay, so that's what I can do to get that information, particularly if I don't have the commission module, the commission and reporting module. If I've subscribed to the commission and reporting module, which gives me a lot more data and reporting and flexibility as far as managing commissions and some other data, I can run some additional reports. So let's hop back over to Pipeline. So if I've got the commission module installed, or excuse me, if I subscribe to it, then I've got all of these reports here, and several of these, including my commissions and closings, my pending commissions, and some other reports, will include the lead sources in those reports. For example, I've got a commissions and closing report that I ran here, and this is the one where if I scroll all the way to the right, I will see the buyer lead source on this report, the buyer and seller lead sources. Okay. And again, several of the reports here will include those lead source fields so that I can track those, or excuse me, based on the report that I'm running, I can get that information by lead source by sorting it once I've downloaded it. Okay. Additionally, when I've got the commission subscribed to the commission module, I've got a lead source report that specifically helps me measure exactly how effective these lead sources are. And I've got one open that I've already downloaded here. And you can see that I can see for each lead source, I can get the total commission and the sales volume. So a nice, clean, summarized report of exactly how each of these lead sources is performing. Okay. And like I said, this is a really straightforward feature. It's one of our new features we released, I think, about 2 weeks ago or so. So we wanted to give you information about it quickly, but it is as straightforward as it looks. You input it, you apply it to the transactions, and then you run the reports against it so that you can easily see how your ads are performing.